moving on now to Andrew. As you mentioned earlier, I mean, we've just gone into what the actual incident was last week. But he's now reportedly demanding his taxpayer-funded security be reinstated after this disturbing alleged incident, which was near his home, as you pointed out, Jack, in Norfolk. Look, he's obviously been stripped of all of his royal titles and etc., and he's been effectively exiled. But, Matt, he's also going to remain a high-profile figure for the rest of his life, and he's the King's brother. Does he have any legs to stand on with this demand?
No.
Okay.
We'll stop that there.
I'm sorry, but there is no appetite within the royal household, the royal family, Met Police, Ravec, Home Office, any right-thinking man and woman living in the UK that believes that Andrew should now have arms protection. You think everything that's got, because it was removed many years ago because he stepped down being a working royal. Currently, the King funds, he provides Andrew with a lot of money, and Andrew can choose to spend that in the way that he wishes. Currently, he has, I believe, former Met Police Royal Protection officers looking after him. And as one source said to me after the incident you're talking about there outside Marsh Farm, it looks like that security officer did his job. So I don't see why we need now to have calls to step it up. We know what's been happening with Harry going through court, and I do not understand why there is such a need for everybody to be surrounded somehow by this ring of steel of security. When you see Catherine out here in Italy, it's going to be very light touch. There isn't going to be, gun-toting cops all around her. And I do not see how anyone could accept that we would, the members of the public, taxpayers, would fund for Andrew to have armed police. It's just, there's not a need for it. I'm sorry.
Well, you're exactly right that it would be a difficult sell to the public, suggesting that they should be forking out for this.
Andrew does not need a gun guard to take a dog for a walk. I mean, he's stuck where he is because of his own misfortune that he engineered all by himself. Now, this one incident does not necessarily mean that you've got to rush around and start getting police with arms up at Sandringham. We'll have a court case and we'll see what actually did happen. It looks, from what we already know, that this guy got out of his car and started to shout and scream at Andrew, and that was it. And the guy, the private security guy, the former Met guy, did his job. He got him in the car and away. I was concerned about, did he manage to pick up the dog and get the dog in the car?
The late Queen's corgis, I think.
I don't think it was one of the corgis. From a picture that I saw, it did not look like a corgi, but I could be wrong.
That's the investigative journalism part of the story. I should have looked at the photo a little bit more closely, outing myself as not a dog breed enthusiast.
I think a couple of observations. One, would we give police protection to Epstein? Andrew is hated because of the things that he is accused of doing. He is being investigated by the police. Traditionally, it's usually the witness that gets police protection, not the potential defendant. He's not been charged yet. They've still got to make a decision on whether to charge him. But also, from a purely security point of view, his house, Marsh Farm, the village where this guy was arrested is right by the specific entrance to Sandringham. That is right by Andrew's house. So from a security perspective, straight away, does he even need to leave the Sandringham estate to walk his dogs? Because if he hadn't, this wouldn't have happened. If he's going to leave the Sandringham estate to walk his dogs, does he really need to go straight to the entrance that's right by his house and then stop and get out of the car right by that entrance? Take him out of a different entrance to a different place that's nowhere near his house, and you're not going to find someone who's lying in wait to attack him. And then you can look at the doors on the estate. You can look at whether there are gates, how easy it is to get through. So there are loads of security issues that you can look at and security provisions that you can look at that don't actually require him to have a Metropolitan Police armed bodyguard. You could even justify, probably, the Met inspecting this area and seeing whether there's more could be done. You could have cameras put up.
Giving advice.
Yeah,
or
exactly.
A review of the current setup as opposed to there being a boost in...
But you made a valid point, and that is that the public would not stand for it. Even though the amount of money is minimal, to protect Andrew from, by a gun guard, the public would not... And they jump up and down as it is at the moment. Can you imagine what it is you're going to give a man who's accused of the things that Andrew's been accused of, being given a gun guard.
It's the principle, of course.
It's the principle, and they'd be going to the barricades. There's no question about that.
I tell you what, the one justification I could see for giving a Metropolitan Police bodyguard is if they were effectively undercover, helping the police investigation.
If the authorities are watching, there you go.
Yeah, that's the way to do it.
Well, we'll see how this all unfolds from here. Moving on to Andrew's ex-wife, though. She's been, again, back in the headlines. We haven't seen her for so long. I think The Sun found her recently. We know that she was hiding out in Austria, but she has made headlines because apparently there's Andrew Lowney, who wrote an incredible book about Andrew and Sarah, claimed that she actually had I'm going to use an interesting term and not one I ever thought I'd say on this show, a friends with benefits arrangement with Sean P. Diddy Combs back in the day in the early 2000s, and that this went on for years. Now, both parties, both Sarah and Sean Combs, have denied that this ever was a physical relationship. A source close to Sarah has said, quote, "This is absolute fabricated nonsense, blatantly untrue, and yet another false allegation from Andrew Lowney." And a representative for Sean Combs said, "There are so many important and monumental events happening today. This utterly ridiculous gossip isn't one of them." Lastly, I will say, though, that Andrew Lowney has doubled down, though, on this story and says, "I stand by it. It's fully sourced with former employees of P. Diddy and Sarah Ferguson." Well, a bit in that. Charles, what do you make of these statements, particularly Sean Combs's? I found it a little bit vague.
Well, vague is not the word. I mean, it's not a denial. He's trying to be clever. He's trying to spin it in a way that we won't discuss it again. Sarah's is much more of a denial, and it would be an interesting court case if either of them ever decided, to sue Andrew Lowney. It's never going to happen because so much stuff could come out. It would be incredible. I mean, when I first saw it, I actually had to read it twice because I was staggered that she could, even for her, she could be so stupid as to get involved with P. Diddy, and the way isn't he in prison at the moment?
He was, yes.
He's in prison.
I think she's shown some exceptionally bad taste when it comes to.
She has lots of bad taste, even from the days of her toe sucking and everything else on the French Riviera. But linked with P. Diddy, and there's that picture which disturbed me greatly. The picture of her, Eugenie, and P. Diddy, and the so-called quote about P. Diddy, "I can hardly wait for her to grow up." You just think, hang on a second, that's not.
I think that is the most chilling part of it.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
And it's not the first time with Sarah Ferguson. She took the girls to meet Epstein while he was still under house. He'd just come out of prison and he was under house arrest, and she took the girls to meet him. And
I've said this before. That was one of the things that I found absolutely disgraceful. And I've known Fergie for a great many years, and I've forgiven her a great many things. But a mother taking two teenage girls to meet a well-known convicted paedophile, no, I'm sorry.
And at one point, days after his release from jail, I think it's extraordinarily bad judgment, of course, but again, it is the involvement of her children in that story, which is all the more shocking.
I mean, Bronte, there's bad judgment and there's bad judgment, and that is really crass to do anything like that.
I completely agree. And look, as we've just mentioned, her reputation is obviously in tatters following the release of the Epstein files, and seeing the depth of her ties to him. But she's been laying very low, and there have been a lot of headlines and unflattering claims and allegations coming out about her. But to have a source close to her come out with this strong statement about this story in particular, why do you think it was important for her to speak on this one?
Well, look, because there's photos of her daughter with Diddy, so that's very disturbing right from the off. B, it expands this into, there is not actually in existence a clear, coherent allegation that Sarah Ferguson had slept with Jeffrey Epstein. That it may have been insinuated by people, some people may have jumped to that conclusion, but nowhere has anybody said, I know this thing happened. Whereas what this is, it's a very clear allegation where you have people on both sides of the fence, as in Diddy's camp and Fergie's camp, royal, a palace source, saying to Andrew Lowney, they had a sexual relationship. But Diddy is, he was only very recently convicted of a lesser crime than he was charged with. He did get off a lot of the allegations against him. And she very clearly introduced her daughters to him. And that line about, he can't wait until they come of age is terrific.
Chilling.
And I actually spoke to Andrew Loney this week, and he absolutely 100% is standing by his story. He has spoken to his publishers about it. They are standing by him. And he, the point he made to me was, look at Fergie's track record.